You are listening to episode number 165, Settling Even When Things Are Good. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful brave hearts. How is everyone doing? I am so excited today. I have a very special guest, Sam, who is here with us today. She's going to tell us all about her breakup journey. I think it's going to be such a good one for those of you who are maybe came from pretty good relationships that may not have been like super terrible. And then also for individuals who are really struggling with the lifestyle, very similar to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to have this lifestyle without my ex. Sam is going to be here and talk about her experience in her heartbreak journey. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you? Who are you? What do you do? And what was your breakup story?
Hi, Dorothy, and hello, Brave Hearts. I'm so excited to be here. As you said, my name is Sam. I am in Ontario, Canada, just outside of Niagara Falls. I'm 34, almost 34. I don't want to rush it, 34 years old. And I work in a chemical industry, which isn't exciting, so I'm not going to get into all that. But I was with my ex for 7 years, and our story was a great one in the sense that we knew of each other because we went to the same high school, but never interacted during that time. And we were really good friends in the beginning. He pursued me for about 6 months before we officially started dating. And once we started dating, it was pretty quick that I realized this was a really great connection. It was very natural. It was very easy. It was stress free. And his family was wonderful. They are wonderful. They instantly became my own. We had numerous mutual friends. So the fitting of us coming together just seemed kind of kismet. And there was no question that this was going to be my person. And throughout the entire relationship, like it was good. There's no major drama. There was no infidelity. There was no narcissistic tendencies, none of that. And to this day, even now that our relationship is no longer together, I can still speak so highly of him and everything that I had in our life together because we built a pretty phenomenal life.
It's so interesting to me. I'm glad that you think, well, first off, thank you. Welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you here. But secondly, I want everyone to hear what Sam said about like the relationship was good. Now, some of you might be coming from a relationship where the relationship wasn't great. There were narcissistic tendencies. It wasn't healthy. There weren't boundaries. There's maybe a lot of codependency and things like that. And I just want you to know, no matter what the background is, your breakup isn't easier or harder because of that. And I think a lot of times I hear both sides of this. I hear if my ex wouldn't have been a narcissist, or if my ex wouldn't have been so terrible, this breakup would be easier. But then I also have people on the other side of this who are coming from really healthy, good relationships who are like, oh, if my ex was just an asshole, this would be so much easier. And just notice and recognize if you're looking at the relationship and what it was as, I don't want to use the word excuse, but as a reason for your breakup being difficult or hard. And could we just all agree that all heartbreak is painful, and it can be, and that's okay. So thank you so much for going into that. So tell us, how did the breakup happen? What happened in the breakup? What were the things that you really kind of started struggling with?
Yeah, so being together for 7 years, the entire relationship, I was very clear that my goal was to get married. It was my number one thing that I wanted. And in the beginning, there was zero indication that he didn't want marriage. So around 5 years, I had brought up like, hey, let's have the marriage discussion. And he was honest with me and said that he just wasn't ready yet. And I said, okay, that's fine. I appreciate your honesty because, again, I wasn't on a set timeline. Um, and then around the 6.5 year mark is when he revealed to me that he said, I don't think I ever want to get married, which was blindsiding because there was no indication prior to that. So for about 6 months, we went back and forth, and I just kind of gave him his mental space to process because he said he needed to do that. And I said, no, I completely understand. So then when we hit the 7 year mark, there just seemed like there was no change, and I was not willing to compromise and let this go, especially because in our relationship and towards the end, he was getting very selfish with his time. And my love language is quality time. And so I just felt like my needs weren't being met. And the one thing that was so important to me wasn't going to happen. And I just said, I can't do this. So I initiated the breakup in a sense, but he completed it by trying to see if he could get there, but being honest and saying that he couldn't get there.
Heartbreaking, right?
Yeah,
Heartbreaking. Because again, even though you were the one that initiated it, it still is so difficult because you're like, I don't want to initiate it though. Like, I don't want to break
exactly.
up. I feel like I'm being forced to make this decision to break up because
Yeah.
we can't come to a compromise. And I don't want to compromise something really big in my life that I truly desire. So kudos to you. That's so hard, so difficult to go through. Was there anything that happened or like, was there I mean, what would I have multiple questions. What would you tell
Mhm.
someone who's in that position, who feels like they're being forced to break up with their partner because they don't want to compromise something that's very important to them?
I would trust your gut and just really sit with yourself and what your values are because I, for the last portion of the relationship, as I said before, our relationship in its entirety was good. But towards the end, I was convincing myself and giving myself thoughts that it was still excellent, even though it wasn't, because I didn't want to acknowledge the fact that I was letting go of what I truly wanted just so that I could be with this person. And I had all of these thoughts that created fears about I'm going to lose this lifestyle. We built a beautiful custom home together. I have very small family that isn't necessarily relatively close at times. So being with his family, who is a massive family and close, like I was terrified of losing them. I was terrified of losing our mutual friends. And I just thought, okay, well, it's not that bad. Maybe I'll just let this go so that I can keep everything because I had convinced myself that there's no way it can get better than this. But I know now that that is so far from the truth.
So good. How did you realize that you were convincing yourself? How did you take that first step to like become aware of the fact that you were convinced? Because sometimes I think when we're in it, like we know we're convincing ourselves, but we don't at the same time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I am someone that really tries to be as self aware as I possibly can, which I know can be difficult to do. And I'm absolutely no expert by any means. But I first started to notice it. It was prior to the breakup. And there would be times where I would go to bed at night and I would have these imaginary, like, what would it be like if we broke up because I'm not getting this? And it was like I was mentally preparing myself, even though I wasn't at that point to actually take the leap yet. And looking back on it now, I'm like, that's a not the ideal thing you should be thinking about when you go to bed next to your partner at night. Yeah.
Yes. Isn't it so fascinating? It's so
Yeah.
fascinating.
Hmm.
Okay, so tell us a little bit. You had mentioned in some of the work that we did that your relationship really became your identity. And you're kind of talking about
Yeah.
it here because you're like the friends are wrapped into it, the lifestyle, this beautiful custom home that you have, and the
Mhm.
family. So, can you talk more about this and why it became a problem for you?
Yeah. Again, like with the lifestyle and everything that we had, and as I mentioned, he became very selfish with his time. So he only wanted to hang out with his family and he only wanted to hang out with his friends. And because I loved all of those people so much, I gladly wanted to spend my time doing those things. Pretty every single vacation that we ever went on, maybe excluding 2 to 3, were with his family. And it just got to a point where I was so fixated on as long as he's happy, I'm happy. And I never pushed him to come to any family events because I knew he wouldn't enjoy it, or spending time with my friends because he didn't want to, because he wanted to be out golfing or doing whatever. And so I just started to accept whatever he wanted was what I wanted. And when I thought, okay, if he's happy, I'm happy, my narrative was so strong in that that I completely stopped asking myself, okay, well, what makes me happy? It was completely gone.
So wild. And it happens almost
Yeah.
just like that. Like it happens slowly and
Yeah.
gradually, but when you wake up to it, you're like, wait, what? All of a sudden
Yeah.
you realize, wow, I'm not doing anything for myself. Right?
No.
Like I don't, yeah, it's just a very awakening moment. So
No.
tell me a little bit about what did you do when you noticed that?
I I didn't notice it too much while we were going through the breakup, but once the breakup happened and you're in that kind of spiral of I'm in so much pain, I don't know what to do here. I found you through your podcast, and hearing you talk about your breakup story was the most relatable thing that I had found. And so when I reached out to you about the program, I think I signed up like the next day. Um, and once I got into the program, Pillar One and Pillar Two changed my life. I'm not even kidding. Pillar One, with feeling my feelings, that was difficult for me because I had previous childhood traumas that I disassociated from. And so I hadn't felt real feelings in 20 plus years. So just diving into that and breaking open and bringing everything to the surface made me aware for pillar two, which was building the relationship with myself. Once I got into pillar two, that's when I recognized I completely lost my identity and what mattered to me while I was in that last half of the relationship. And then that's when I started having all of these aha moments of like, oh my God, I was a shell of who I really am.
Hit me and the
Yeah.
heartstrings with that. Because I mean, I
Yeah.
relate to that totally. I mean, I use fantasy
Yeah.
football because it's funny because it's like, oh yeah, I was doing all these. I went to so many games and I spent so much money and I would watch fantasy football or not fantasy, but just football all day, every day on the Sundays that they played. And it just like blew my mind when I had so much time and so much money back to myself. And I was like, oh my God, is this actually what and again, that's a very minute
Yeah.
example of that. But it's
Yeah.
just absolutely mind blowing when you start diving into, wow, like who am I without this other person?
Yeah. Like in the very beginning of the breakup, I felt so lost and it was terrifying because I'm like, I didn't have trust in myself. I didn't know what was up, what was down. Like, I just felt like I wasn't even a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when I started feeling the feelings, as much as feeling negative feelings isn't what anybody wants to do on a daily basis, but by actually feeling everything and then kind of taking that time for myself, I just felt like I was becoming a person again. And then I started to learn who I was and what made me happy.
Mm.
And obviously, losing my home that I loved and losing him, like, again, I could still paint him as the most extraordinary person in the world because I can create thoughts that do that. But I am so flippin' happy now that I was a doubter in the beginning when you said like, oh, there's no way I'm gonna get over this person in 3 months. After I finished pillar 2, it was almost like, oh, pillar 3 of creating closure and doing all that. I'm like, oh, I'm already there. Like,
isn't it so wild? Yeah. By pillar 2,
yeah,
normally you're like over your ex. And then
yeah,
pillar 3 is really wrapping up any loose ends and creating a solid foundation of that closure. But then
yeah,
really where it gets exciting is pillar 4. Like that's where
yeah.
everything, yeah. Hmm.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit, because if we're being honest, in the beginning, you really struggled. These are my
Mhm.
favorites though. Like I love, and when in the beginning, and this sounds terrible, but I mean this in the kindest way, but like in the
Yeah.
beginning when you're really in it,
Mhm.
I get so excited internally. I can't show that to you, but I get
Yeah.
so excited because I'm like, your life is going to be so different in just a matter of weeks.
Yeah.
So, because you really struggled with the feeling of feelings. I remember you just being really deep in emotion. There
Mhm.
was a turning point for you, though, like a huge turning point. Do you
Mhm.
remember what that was?
I One of the turning points for me that I remember, and I'm not sure if this is the same one that you're thinking of, but when I really started to understand the thoughts that I was choosing to have, controlled the emotions I was having, when I rethought how the breakup went and that by him being honest with me and saying, I can't marry you, and I started to view it as he's doing this for me. He's allowing me to go out into the world and truly find the person that's meant for me. I had this instant compassion for him. And it was like I kind of had this different love for him, which is kind of crazy to think about an ex in a heartbreaking situation. Because you're right, in the beginning, I couldn't not bawl my eyes out. I was so emotional. I was so terrified that I was never going to get over him. And now I just am so thankful for him because I'm now in a place where I can make my life so freaking good.
Oh, so exciting. That was the one that I was thinking about. Another one that came to mind while you were talking too is I just remember in the very beginning, you struggled really hard with just like being open to the idea that your lifestyle could be better than the one that you had with him. Tell people
Yeah.
how you overcame that.
Yeah. So, like I said, with him, when we dated, it opened my eyes to, yes, we built 2 custom homes together while we were together. His family had a condo in Florida. They had the cottage up north. All the things that I've never gotten to experience growing up because my family never had those things. So going into the relationship, that was not a want or desire for me, but being with him opened my eyes to those things. And so when the relationship ended and I thought, oh my God, I'm losing all of that. I'm never going to have that again. Um, I struggled with that big time. Um, but I started to realize that after losing all of that, I'm really happy right now, and I don't even have those things yet. And then I started to put myself first. And this past summer, I was up north. I was going to cottages. I don't have the custom home yet, but I know I can do it again. And I just also truly believe that the energy and the thoughts that I put out into the universe now are going to magnetically bring all of that to me. And the person that I'm meant to be with, we're going to build that together, truly as a real partnership, not just this is what he brought to the table and I'm just kind of there.
So good. That gives me chills. I'm obsessed, right? And you feel in control of creating that. And I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing is a lot of times people are like, well, if that incorporates another person, then I just don't have control over that. How do I create that?
Yeah.
Versus being in full belief that I'm in control of who I attract in my life, who I create, what partnerships I have. And that is available to me, and being in full belief of that.
Yeah.
And that even reminds me of baby Marilyn, my baby example all the time of like, I know that I can create her. And does it require another human being? Absolutely, it does. But I
Mm-hmm.
know that regardless of all of the different circumstances that could take place in my life, like that's a done deal. And believing in that, and just even believing in that now, feels so much better than not believing. My life right now, believing in it, is better versus when I choose not to believe in it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the one thing that you've said over and over, and it really stuck because you would ask us, if I were to compare my relationship that I had even before my current ex, you're like, was that better or worse than my ex? And I was like, oh, it was way worse. So each relationship or each situation I'm putting my in, I'm not going backwards. I'm only going forwards. So if this situation that I just had and I thought it was as phenomenal as it was, I'm so freaking excited for what the next one is because I'm not going to go backwards. It's only going to be better.
Right? Because you're the one that
Yeah.
gets to decide. Your relationships don't just happen to you, my friends. You're the one that's deciding to be in a relationship. So therefore, you get to decide to only be in relationships with people or situations that are better aligned for you.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I'm so excited
Mhm.
for you.
Me too.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so talk to us a little bit about, what's different about your life now in comparison to when you started your breakup journey.
Um, Now I mentally just feel like I'm in a completely different playing field than where I was at the beginning of my breakup. Um, I feel very mentally strong and healthy. I process my emotions 50-50, positive and negative. I take the time to actually recognize anything that comes up for me. And in the beginning of the breakup, I was just not processing anything. I was just sitting in fear, not taking action, not doing anything. Whereas now I'm in full action mode. And that's not to say that I don't still struggle with fears and insecurities. Like I'm human. Um, but I just put out so much more confidence now. So my daily life now, I even sometimes think I'm like, how am I going to fit another person into my life now as a single person? Because I barely have time for myself with everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um, but I just I put me first, and that's a beautiful thing. I've never ever done that before.
It feels good,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
It does. And it was one of those I when I was in a relationship, I loved my alone time. Like if he was having a guys' night out, I would just stay home and watch movies. And I thought, oh, I love my alone time. But I was kidding myself because I was terrified of being alone because that's not truly being alone when you're in a relationship.
Mm.
So now that I've been sitting in my alone for since January, actually, I have not dated, and I that's by choice, and I'm happy that I've sat with this time for myself because now when the next relationship or dating situations come, I know I'm going to show up in a secure, happy, magnetic energy because I'm not afraid to lose anything.
Yes. Totally different experience. You're not like grasping and holding on and like this person has to work out. And especially
Mhm.
when you go through dating, you don't get tied to the first person you bump into out of
Right,
desperation. Mhm.
right. Mhm.
So exciting. Okay, so then I was just thinking as you were talking, I really wish there was a way time travel. I'm sitting here thinking like
Mhm.
I need to get into time travel because I wish there was a way that you could hear your episode before you ever started. Like how wild would that be to just be like that's where I'm at? What? What?
Yeah, I've actually thought about that numerous times of like even what sounded like and where my feelings were my first coaching call with you.
Mhm.
And I was I was such a broken person. I had all of the narratives. I said, there's no way a 3-month program is going to work. There is no way I'm ever going to get over this person. Like it just will never happen. I love him so much. It's impossible.
Mm.
And to be where I'm at now, I I didn't believe it was possible, and I'm here to say it is so possible. And every person's story, yes, it's different, but it's all about your thoughts.
Isn't it crazy? What? It's about thoughts or thinking?
It's so crazy. Yeah, because I would have bet my life that I was like, oh no, him and I were different. These guys didn't have as strong of a relationship as we had. I'm going to be the 1% that this doesn't work for. And yeah, it sounds funny, but it's almost comical. Like in a way, I kind of want to laugh at myself, but I would never do that. I have compassion for myself. Um, but yeah, for anyone, if they have the ability to kind of review back as they grow, I recommend it because it's really cool to think about how much strength and growth you do have during the process.
So good. So good.
Mhm.
So that kind of ties into my last question for you is what might you tell others who are hurting during heartbreak? And what do you wish you would have heard in the beginning?
Um, in the beginning, I mean, I wish I would have heard more of like, yes, there's the standard, like, oh, it just takes time and all that. But as you say, it doesn't have to take time. So I wish I heard more of, I have full control of this. And to know that what our relationship was, I created that. Yes,
Mm.
he had a part of it, but I created what our relationship was. So I have the ability to create what my breakup is. Yeah.
Obsessed. People listening to the podcast can't see my face right now, but I just like had like jazz hand fingers and I'm just like, yes, right? You created
Yeah.
the experience you had in your relationship, so you get to create the experience you have in your breakup.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would tell current, future brave hearts that one, listen to Dorothy because you know exactly what you're doing. But just crack yourself open and do the work and truly feel and process everything you can in your own space and time, obviously. But if you truly do those things and do the work, like I said, this is going to change your life. Because even as I look at this now, yes, I started this as a breakup program, but it very quickly became so much more than a breakup program. This became all about me and just how I handle life in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so grateful for that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Literally, I was talking to my coach the other day and I was like, one of my favorite things is that my breakup changed the entire trajectory of my life. And
Mhm.
my goal for everyone I work with is to change the entire trajectory of your life
Yeah.
in the most amazing, best way ever. And so I feel like you saying that is like confirmation. I was like, yes, we changed
Yeah.
the entire trajectory of your experience in heartbreak. And that to me means everything,
Yeah.
everything. So,
Yeah. Because the skills that you've taught me, I now take into my daily life with my friends, my family, my job.
mhm.
Like it entails everything now. And I just feel like I'm performing as a better human in all aspects, which I was not expecting or prepared for.
Wasn't expecting this. This was
No, I was like, I'm here for a breakup and that's all it's going to be. No, like I am just so proud of myself for taking the risk of doing this, but I'm just so happy that you put this out there and that I found it.
So grateful for you saying that. I was just gonna
Yeah.
say I'm just so proud of you. I literally can see the coaching calls. Like the first one, you were like on your bed crying. It was the whole thing.
Mhm.
Then I remember the turning point coaching call, and you were like outside on like the back patio or something. And you were
Yeah.
just a completely different human. And that was only like halfway through.
Yeah.
So exciting. I'm just so proud of you and so
Mm.
grateful to be a part of your journey. So thank you so much for sharing all of this. Is there anything
Mhm.
else that you would like to say to any brave hearts who might be listening?
I would just say that if you're in the program, there are so many brave hearts that obviously are going through the same thing. And if you don't have the support system in your personal life, know that you're going to find it in the community, and just know that there is always someone who is willing to be there for you. You're never alone. And just, I don't know, there's so many things, but yeah, I guess just that you're not alone no matter what, and you're going to be okay. You're going to be so okay.
I love that. You're going to be okay. And you're going to be more than okay. Your life's going to only
Yeah.
get better from here. We're only going up.
Yeah.
It's our choice. We're in control and we're only going up from here. Period.
Yeah. The universe has your back. What's meant for you will find you, and rejection is protection.
Love it. Love it, girlfriend.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sam, for your time and for coming on and sharing your journey. And everyone who's listening, thank you for listening. We hope this helps, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex in 3 months or less to build a life better than the one you thought you had with your ex, I would like to personally invite you to my next group course where we take everything you've learned here on the podcast and apply it to your life. Come check it out at www.lifecoachdorothy.com.